Hello and welcome to the Savage Goose Show, where we talk about all things Savage Worlds from the past week. Today on the Savage Goose Show, we're going to talk about Savage Worlds being rated. We're going to look at an article of 14 different games that were all ranked against each other, rated in different categories, see where Savage Worlds fell, look at how it compares to some other games, and just take a look at the criticism. I like looking at criticism of Savage Worlds because I think it helps us ensure that we can explain the game better and that we can understand where the game may be falling. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and, as always, dive into the newsletter. So first up, the newsletter, let's looking at 2025 in review. I was going to do a 2025 in review show, but honestly, just the holidays and a lot of stuff going on with my family right now, just didn't seem like we had the time to do that. But let's go ahead and look at this really quick article from Pinnacle on what happened for them in 2025, and then also what is coming in 2026. So in 2025, we saw projects including Deadlands Lost Colony, Mad World, the Carrying Crown Adventure Path for Pathfinder Savage Worlds, the new board game from Pinnacle, Doomguard, Supers vs. Cthulhu, and other RPG books like Deadlands Dark Ages. So that's very exciting to see all of those games. I'm very excited for several of them. The Deadlands Lost Colony should be shipping soon. I'm looking forward to that because I'm getting all the Lost Colony stuff for the Mad World campaign. The Deadlands Dark Age is something we've been waiting for years, and that finally happened, and we look forward to getting that hopefully this year, maybe. We'll see. And then a lot of things also shipped. We saw things, we saw Necessary Evil 3, the box set, we saw the update for Science Fiction Companion, Science Savage Tales of Science Fiction, the Advanced Player Guide 2, Bestiary 2, the Carnage Cascades, Bible Northwest, and Risk Europa will soon be out there as well. Just a lot of projects that Pinnacle is doing and a lot of really good stuff that we've received over the years and a lot of stuff that we're really excited to get this year, both in the form of Kickstarters also being shipped to us. So what's next? Well, as you may have heard from other sources, 2026 will be marking the 30th anniversary of Deadlands. So Deadlands actually predates Savage Worlds. It came before it. Deadlands was created by Shane back in 1996, and that was the original crew. And it has now been 30 years since that game. It's had different versions. It's had different rule sets. It's had different miniature games and other comic books and graphic novels and all these stories, dime novels. A lot of things have been tied to Deadlands, but there's more to come. This year, there's going to be a lot of things going on. They are going to do some stuff in stores. They have stuff in store for this year. I misread that. Gotta read carefully. You gotta look at some huge stuff plans in store for this year. A whole bunch of new products are going to be coming along for Deadlands. So if you're into Deadlands, get your wallets ready. But also, this last thing that they said is the thing that got me the most interested. So we'll get there first. We'll get there after we get the rest of the stuff. One, there's gonna be an adventure with the most legendary Bloodsucker, which I assume is Dracula. That's the most legendary one, right? Yeah. A new box campaign set. So if you need more campaigns, good. And then another regional source book, which is great. Now, this is the last line that got me interested. Are you curious? Deadlands will appear in more than just tabletop role-playing games this year. Okay. Does that mean tabletop board games? Does that mean a video game, finally, maybe? Does it mean a card game with Boomtown? Probably not. I don't think it's that. I think we already see enough Doomtown stuff or Boomtown stuff. Doomtown, yeah. I was been pondering the idea of how a Savage Worlds system inspired RPG game would look like and see if it, how would that look like to play. That'd be pretty exciting. But as John Doom said, if I were a betting man, I would probably say a board game. I think they've dipped their toes into board games, and they're likely looking for a Deadlands board game, which would be really cool to see. And also like if we can get more miniatures for our Deadlands game, that'd be pretty cool. I would love to have more miniatures. If we get either STLs or miniatures, that'd be great. So that's what I kind of expect it's gonna be a board game, but I can hold out for a video game. I can hope for a video game, and maybe that could happen. Yeah, we'll see. Oh, that's a good shout, Venkel. I'm hoping for a Rail Wars style. So if you guys aren't familiar with Rail Wars, Rail Wars is basically what inspired Savage Worlds originally, but it was a miniatures game for Deadlands. So it was like a miniatures war game essentially, using different rules that was in the world of Deadlands, but it was a miniatures game. And those rules inspired Savage Worlds eventually, like those got adapted Savage Worlds. And I have always wondered, like, okay, like you could just take Savage rules and use it for wargaming if you wanted to, but it'd be nice to see. I think the game is developed enough that you could probably take those and massage them out a little bit more to make a board game rule set again. And I think that'd be very exciting to see. So I think that, as it should, that'd be pretty cool. John Doom does mention that Hensley did used to work on video games, so that'd be cool. But what else? The other thing that they're saying is 2026 will also see the return of the streets to the streets of Pine Box, Texas, and 12 to Midnight's East Texas University with all new tales of monsters, co-eds, and cultists coming your way this spring. Okay, so this spring, so we're having this spring. That's super exciting to hear. I've run the ETU campaign, the previous one that was for Deluxe Edition, Deluxe Explorers Edition, I guess. It's not bad. Used SWADE though. Heavily inspired by the Wild Cards show on Saving Throw show, doing ETU. So definitely did that. I'm excited for the new ETU too. This is basically what this is. The codename I've heard is this is gonna be called New Blood. I think that actually sounds like a really good name. So if they kept it, I'd be okay with it. But I have seen a lot of there's been a few posts around about Facebook specifically around the work that's going into it. It's been in works for quite a while. So I'm super excited to see this finally come. I will definitely be working on trying to get this and as much of it as I can. Bengal says it'd be ETU graduate school. I don't know if I want to play graduate school. I did graduate school. I don't really want to do that. College was definitely way more fun. So I'm hoping, and from what I've seen, this is going to be much more modern. It's going to keep in count more modern technologies like smartphones and such, and other things that we could. And then there's also some other developments like the president's been changed over, new things have been removed. I think traditions been removed, added, new updates to the school, that kind of thing. Just like a school would actually go through these processes. So I'm curious to see what kind of updates we see for modern day with all the changes and technology that we've seen since the original ATU, and seeing what kind that's not like a huge change, but I'm curious to see what that looks like and how much it's different. So what else? The Doom God board game will arrive this summer, so you should be getting that. And if you order that, it'll be getting that mail this summer. And then what's it say? It says we'll immediately show you the first expansion for it as the King in Yellow manifests in Legacy City. While Savage Worlds, okay, so they're gonna do expansion this summer for King in Yellow, and then they're also gonna do Rift Savage Worlds beyond reaches the end of the Earth in late summer, taking on the same in China, Japan, Australia, and beyond. So more Savage Rift stuff. If you're into Savage Rifts, look forward to that. And then autumn should see Pathfinder's most anticipated adventure path come to Savage Worlds as we present their take on the Kingmaker series. I have not gotten the other two. I haven't gotten Carrying Crown. I didn't get Carrying Crown. I didn't get Crimson Throne. I've heard a lot about Kingmaker, and I am curious about Carrying Crown. If I ever find the time to play that. So that means that Kingmaker, I think, should be very interesting to see. I think that is definitely one of the more well-known adventure paths in Pathfinder. So I think that'll be really cool to see bring it brought into Savage Worlds, and maybe bring more people into Savage Worlds to play Savage Pathfinder Kingmaker. So that's really exciting. I'm really glad to see that partnership with Paizo really expand with Pinnacle, so we can continue to get more stuff from for Savage Pathfinder, because I think Savage Pathfinder really has taken off as like one of the most popular versions of the game. And so that's really good that partnership can continue to happen, and we can continue to see more Savage Pathfinder stuff come into the market. That's a lot of stuff coming on this year, so just be prepared for that. A lot of stuff coming. The next section, I'm not going to go over too much details, but that you can take some time to read this. Essentially, what they want to say is that there's been they've faced a lot of difficulties this past 4 years with people like personal problems, not necessarily as a company, but just personal things that they've had to different people in the company have had to go over, people who have left, people who have had illnesses, people who have just different things. As you see, as I mentioned here, Jody's going through a battle with a disease. So she's been posting a lot of updates on her Facebook, which has been good to see hear from her and how things are going with her. There's some other people who are going who are battling illness and going through. But despite all that, they have been able to keep on with the projects, and they want to say thank you to the community who is being supportive of Pinnacle. And I'm excited, as much as we'll get into criticisms later, I do love Pinnacle and I love the game, and I hope that they're around for a long time. And I pray that everyone who is going through these illnesses will heal, and we can just look forward to hopefully that coming to an end. And this time of problems will cease. And then also just Happy New Year. If you watch the Savage Universe stream over on Pinnacle's website, over on their Twitch channel, it's also on their YouTube channel, I believe. JM is going to be talking to Mike Lafferty about Starbeards. Mike Lafferty also worked on the After, Cocaine Owlbear. He's with Fainting Goat Games. We already did a interview on this channel with Mike and I think Mike and maybe one other person. I think it was Aaron. No, I can't remember what his name was. Sorry, but with the team over at Fainting Goat Games to talk about Starbeards. I don't think we're gonna do that again. The project did get delayed until sometime this year, so that's part of the reason why we did our stream about it several months ago at this point. But we are still looking forward to that product coming out. So if you want to hear more about it, take a look at that live stream and then head over to this live stream on Thursday so you can ask all the questions that I didn't ask. There's some New Year's sales going over at TTRPG for Savage Worlds products. You can get the core rule book for $6, Dylan's Weird West for $12, Pathfinder stuff, Savage Worlds stuff. Pirates of Spanish Main is one that is it's a bit old, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. I read through it a while ago, 14 years ago now. Just give you an idea. But I've heard really good things about it, and I can't remember much of it, if I'm honest, but there it is. Take a look at that. If you use Roll20, there are some good deals on VTT assets for Roll20 to use Savage Worlds. Savage Pathfinder, Savage Core Rules. One of these days, I probably will buy a VTT bundle, but I have to decide on which VTT I'm going to use first. So we'll see. This week's licensee spotlight is Starbreaker, Saints and Sinners, the audiobook Kickstarter is going on right now. We'll get that talk about that a little bit in the Kickstarter section, but that is going on right now. So if you are interested in getting Starbreakers as an audiobook, you can go ahead and check out the backer kit for this. I don't know if I have a link in the description currently. I need to put a bunch of links down there, so hopefully I can remember to do that after the stream. But do take a look at that over at Backer Kit. John says, join us on Foundry, sir. One-time purchase. The Foundry is definitely the contender. I think it's between Foundry and Fancy Grounds, because Fancy Grounds has gone free to play and it's on Steam. That being said, I don't play online very often. And when I do, I just tend to use Albert Rodeo. And I usually just use Ark and Forge at my table for having my TV on the table and then like play with maps. So but Foundry is definitely in contention for being a VTT that I maybe someday will buy. What's going on with crowdfunding? Rifts Europa is shipping out to internationally. Daylight's Bottom Northwest, I believe. Yeah, I already got that. So you should have got that if you're in the US, but international pallets are going out to distribution partners. So you should see that if you're out internationally. You should be getting that soon. Deadlands Lost Colony, Mountain World, it's at warehouse, which is super exciting because it means that we can get it soon. I'm expecting the whole entire set of like everything for that. So that might be on my own unboxing, even though it's a product that's been out for a while, but I have a lot that I will be opening. So that'll be a little fun. Doomguard, the file files are delivered, but Pledge Manager is open for pre-orders. Same thing with Dark Ages and Carrying Crown. Carrying Crown is that last call for feedback. So take a look at those. I'm super excited for Dark Ages. So excited. Just looks like it's gonna be like so much fun. So Ryan P says, just got Foundry myself. It's been awesome. Bit of a learning curve though. I have heard that about Foundries. There's a lot like mods and stuff and the way things you can install, and they can all be a bit confusing and convoluted at times. But yeah, we'll see. So that is everything for the newsletter. We're talking about some new products next. There's a few new products that came out since our last stream, which has been a while. And I'm just going to highlight some ones that I want to really wanted to highlight. And I'll just kind of start. As you can expect, I am also going to highlight the City Guard Chronicle small cases. We've got the Horse Trader one sheet, and then on top of that, I think it was like 2 days in a row. It was like one day this one, and the next day another one, and that was the Dreaming Affair. So as you can see, this one was written by JM DeFoggy. So from the man who goes and does the live stream over at Pinnacle. I really enjoy talking to him. And I've liked the stuff he's written. So I'm looking forward to looking through this one at some point. And see, I've purchased it already, but I haven't read it yet. So we'll see about that. I gotta get around to it. The other things that came up, there was one new swag product called Jousting Rules specifically for jousting. I like how Savage Worlds is so modular that you can just take kind of rules like this and just kind of slap into a game. And doesn't really usually break anything. So if you want to have rules for your game on how to run jousting events or run jousting encounters, this is a product you can take a look at and see if that's good for you. This next product is this is a bundle, but it was a bundle because there's a whole bunch of things in this I wanted to kind of call out. This is a setting from Marshall Games that is a sci-fi setting. Where you play as these sci-fi rangers, space rangers, essentially. And the setting is called Challengers. And it takes place in our system. There's I saw mention of Alpha Centauri, Terra Nova. I believe I saw Mars, Mars. So there's connections to Earth. It is a thing where it's based on our history. But there's a whole bunch of products in this bundle. The bundle is actually only $2.25. So if you're looking for a sci-fi setting, I'd say take a look at this. And I think that's all I have going on right now. I think there was one other product, but I don't think it ended up being for some reason the link didn't work anymore. So yeah. All right. So what else? Kickstarters. Ending on Friday, January 30th, is the Starbreaker Saints and Sinners complete audiobook. There are some bundle options. If you want usually these audiobooks are one of the best ways to get copies of the book on top of the audiobook. So I highly recommend taking a look at the deals over at the backer kit for this this particular Kickstarter and see what options you have to maybe get some other stuff as well. I've been wanting to get some audiobooks for Savage Worlds just so I can listen to them, so I can hear the rules out loud. I've been running Vermilion right now, and I actually would really like an audiobook of Vermilion so I can listen to the lore, listen to the rules of this setting, and kind of get everything read to me as I'm doing other things. So I think the idea of doing an audiobook is something that I really like the idea of, and I hope this goes well for them. And if you want an audiobook of Starbreakers or any of the other stuff for Starbreaker, take a look at that. Coming in 2026 is Occult City from Doghouse Rules. This is a superhero horror role-playing game using Savage Worlds, and I'm not gonna lie, it looks awesome. The art looks sweet. I've seen different artwork from their Facebook, so if you go follow Doghouse Rules on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, you should see plenty of artwork about this. We will be talking to the guys over at Doghouse Rules sometime this month. I believe that's in 3 weeks, something like that. I believe it's the 20th to 27th. We'll have them on to talk about Occult City, and so I'm looking forward to that. That's definitely one of the products I'm definitely looking forward to. There's 2 products coming up early this year that I'm really looking forward to. So it's Occult City, and then also we got Starbreaker coming out. Starbeards. Again, take a look at the live stream from a couple months ago, and check out the live stream this week over at Pinnacle's Twitch channel. That's sometime this year. I don't think I have an exact date yet. Oh, we missed one. There it is. Sorry. Vermilion Outlaw Girls and Cannibal Elves coming in 2026 as well. I am running a Vermilion game right now. I'm running the Sick and the Dead campaign, and we've only run one session so far. The player characters are hated by everybody in town, which is I think is a lot of fun. One of my players is a little bit worried about it, but I think it's super fun, and I think they'll get through it. But love Vermilion, and I'm looking forward to this next adventure. Adventure book. I really like this one because it's very I haven't looked too much into the other one, but I like the way this is designed because it's very contained adventure mini campaign, but plenty of sandbox. The players are free to kind of go out and do what they want. and you can introduce different adventures different times. There's a recommended like order to adventures, but you're left to do whatever you want. There's nice rumors. There's different like hooks throughout other adventures to like hook into the other adventures in the book to give your players, while they're in one adventure, hook to another adventure. And just the whole entire design of it, I think, is really well done. And I'm expecting that same thing for Outlaw Girls and Cowboy Elves. So look forward to that. Monthly Ace Swag licensee. We mentioned Doghouse Rules. We've done them before as an Ace licensee spotlight for Sidewinder Recoiled. They're going to be doing Outlaw Occult City here in a bit. But one of the other games that they have is Dust Bunnies, and this is a game where you play as dust bunnies trying to get treasure from under the couch, try to avoid getting vacuumed up, and it is designed to be played with Savage Worlds, but for kids. One of the things I love about Savage Worlds is how different levels you can have of game complexity in Savage Worlds. And one of the things I like to do a lot is like, hey, when you talk about Savage Worlds, I'd say, hey, you can play, look at the breadth of Savage Worlds. Like, hey, you can play a game like Dust Bunnies, and you can play games like Rifts and Battle Lords, and it's all in the same system. Yes, one is way more complicated, more gritty, and more dark, and one's way more light and kid friendly. But it highlights the adaptability of Savage Worlds, and I think this is one of these games that I think that does it well. And so I highly recommend that if you are looking for like a cute little game, little fun game, little cozy game to play with your kids, or maybe people who just aren't really into dark things or like really hard game systems, to check out Dust Bunnies. We'll be covering this all month, so I'll get a little more into the details of what's in this game in the next few weeks. But you'll have to wait for that in the next few weeks. All right, on to our main topic today. Shockingly, as on Zoom, the Dust Bunnies are a dark one. Oh, good to know, John. Thanks for that. So this is actually important news because I want to make sure everyone knows. Sprawl Runners was taken down from DriveThru RPG for a little bit, and it is now back, and right now it's 25 cents apparently. So go get it while you can. John, I'll have to. Okay, that's like big enough news. I need to go check it right now because I was kind of really sad because I hadn't grabbed it yet, but I really wanted to get it. So if it's available, I want to grab it. It is like, yes, 20 cents right now, but no print on demand option. So I really want to get it printed, so I'll have to see about that. So today we're going to talk about, is Savage Worlds the best TTRPG? And if it is, then why didn't I get 80 out of 100 on this article? So to give a background to this, there's an article a couple weeks ago that was going around the interwebs that was someone's rating of 14 games, and he divided like the ratings into like different categories. So games were getting different scores, and then the combined scores were what he tabulated for an overall rating of each game. And he's pretty outright says like, hey, I'm putting D&D at the top, and I'm putting D&D at the top for a reason. And we'll kind of go over that a little bit. I don't really have an argument for that, if I'm honest. I completely understand like putting D&D at the top of the ranking, but Savage Worlds was included, and anytime Savage Worlds is included, I like to see that. I like to see what people said. I'm excited that someone's giving Savage Worlds attention. And in the 14, it came in 6. We're gonna talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about like compared to some of the other games rated, some of the things he said and why. Some things I definitely agree with, some of them I don't agree with. And just kind of point a few things out and just kind of have a conversation with you guys about Savage Worlds, how it ranks in against other people, other games, and different ways. So let's go and do that. I'm going to go ahead and bring this actually down here. I think this might be the best. I'll share this tab. There we go. Can I make myself a little bit bigger? Nope. That's too big. All right. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that's a little bit better. There we go. Okay. So this article, again, it's the best tabletop RPGs of all time. He only lists 14. I don't think he's saying that he's done every single game. whatever. He's mentioned some other RPGs for PC, video game platforms, etc. And this is like a reference guide that he made basically for all the games that he put on this list. The first game he put is Dungeons & Dragons. And I actually want to start with looking at Dungeons & Dragons and talk about where he put it and some of the things that he said about it, as far as like game lore, uniqueness, and stuff. That actually, I was in the chat earlier. I saw some people talking about the criteria he used already. So great. I appreciate. Thank you all for putting your thoughts already in. So let's go ahead and like dive in a little bit to this. I think for the most part, I can definitely understand most of it. I think the one that is I'm glad to see is that he actually didn't put combat that high. Now, one of the things you actually will see that is that I think the highest score he gave any systems combat was an 8. So most systems actually did not get a good score in combat, or not like anywhere near 10 or 9. The best score I saw was an 8 for combat, and I don't think any other ones got an 8. So we're looking at a 7 in combat, and then a purchase price of 9, which I think it's a fair assessment. It didn't give him the best a 10, but I think like 9 is pretty good. The core rulebook is pretty expensive, but you only really need the player's handbook. I personally don't think you need the monster manual or the DM's guide. If you only need to buy one book, just buy the player's handbook and you don't need anything else. Also, the game is super famous. Uniqueness is something someone brought up. We'll get to that in a moment. Ease of learning, I feel like it tends a bit high personally for ease of learning. But I think compared to like previous editions, yeah, it is actually a lot easier. And compared to some of the other games on this list, it is a lot easier than some of the other games on this list. Presentation, yeah, they have that really good presentation. They have really good artwork. They do a really good job. And that's pretty good. Lore, D&D's lore is huge, is quite vast. Now, I think one of the things that we're going to get to when we get to the Savage Worlds lore section is that more and more D&D is making their lore in their like core rule books to be a little bit more generic. It's not completely generic. They definitely still put in a lot of lore in there that's usually like defaulting to Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk or something like that. I don't remember which setting exactly, but I do think they put lore in. I don't know if I give it a 10, but I do think there is lore there. I think it is much more than Savage Worlds does, for example. Game flow, sure. Game flow's, I guess. Artwork is beautiful, so yeah, definitely that. Game fame, and obviously it's the most famous game, right? The uniqueness one is something that someone brought out. He just argues is look, D&D is the one who started it all, and so you can't really say that it's not unique in that, like, because everyone's trying to be unique from it, right? It's like, oh, it's D&D but D&D but this, and just because you're the top dog in the industry doesn't mean that you're not unique as a product itself. A lot of people are copying you, but there's something that makes you unique away from them that's making you top dog. And I get that. I'm not really that concerned about it. And I think putting D&D at the top of the list is not incorrect. So let's then look at a few other what's next? Well, next one was Numenera Cypher System. Now, I'm actually quite curious about Cypher System. They just did a Kickstarter recently for the second edition of Cypher, which I think is supposed to fix some of the things that people didn't like about it. The thing I like about Cypher, the idea I like about Cypher, and this is not just Cypher, other games do this too, is I really like this idea that is in this I believe the GM doesn't roll. There's something about that I really like, because it's just like you call for a check and the player knows what they need to hit. They know that they need to roll, and it's all on the players. There's no like, oh, did the GM really roll X? It's like, no, everything's out in the open because the players are the ones that are rolling. This thing about that I really enjoy. It also means that the GM doesn't have to like fumble for anything. It's just he can just stay involved and thinking about like getting in the game out there. So I actually really like the idea. And Cypher sounds really, really fun and interesting. Now, what they did here, and we'll kind of get to this when we get to the Savage Worlds, is they combined Numenera, the setting that one of the big settings they use for Cypher, with Cypher System. It's like, oh, Numenera and Cypher is combined here. And the thing that's going to affect that is this lore score. And that is, they give it 10. Now, Cypher itself is a settingless system. It doesn't really have a setting, but Numenera is the setting, right? And he gave, because he loves the setting, Numenera is really good. I'm not saying it's not. I just don't know anything about it. He gave it a 10. Moving down the list, we get to Starfinder, Pathfinder. Neatness, not very unique. It's basically just it was supposed to be a ripoff of D&D, essentially. With a not ripoff. That's probably the bad word, but we'll get to that. And game flow, artwork, it's all pretty good. I think we can all agree to that. Combat maybe is a little bit high. I think it's actually the same as D&D, so that's something interesting, because I think Pathfinder's combat is a lot more difficult. Maybe it's more of a game flow problem, but maybe it's just like more tactical. So yeah. Then we have Marvel Universe role-playing game. This actually has the highest combat score at an 8 out of any of the systems here, and none of them I think the highest otherwise is 7.5. And so again, 8 here. Game flow, artwork, everything. I don't know about this game to really comment about this. This all seems like a fairly understandable score. Uniqueness, yeah, it's Marvel, it's superheroes, sure. Is it easy? I guess it's easy to learn, sure. I'll agree. I'll believe you. Presentation's a decent, no bad scores, all like pretty good scores across the board. Shadowrun a little bit. I know a little bit more about. Not very good at ease of purchase. I think that's just because it's not always available in stores, and that's what we're going to see for a lot of these games. Is that a lot of these games just aren't available in stores, or not as easily available in stores. You can get it on Amazon, but if you go to your local RPG store, is Shadowrun going to be on the shelf? I would usually think so, unless they're one of those stores that only sells D&D and Pathfinder. And there are game stores like that. They only sell D&D, Pathfinder, Starfinder, and that's it. So, something to think about. Now, they got an 81, and here's Savage Goose at 80. And this is where we're going to start diving a little bit more and talk about what he gave for that. Uniqueness, 8 out of 10. I mean, honestly, I can take that. Now, why is a little bit different. He does say it's a classless system, which I think is a unique part to Savage Worlds, because you can do anything. You can be a knight, as he says, a knight, wizard, fighter, whatever. You can be anything, and it's also any genre. And you have all these different powers and everything. It uses a deck of cards for initiative. You have bennies. You have the wild die. The wild die is the thing where I'm like, what? Because he said here the game features the wild die, also known and sometimes exploding dice. I'm like, no. A wild die and exploding dice are two different mechanics. So that's not really. It's okay. That's just inaccurate, right? That's a role it really is. It's just inaccurate. The wild die is not exploding dice. There's two different mechanics. Okay. Not a big deal. I think 8's still a perfectly fine score for Savage Worlds. Not that big deal. He's learning. He gave it 10. That's actually super exciting. He feels that way. He said, hey, you can build a character in 30 minutes. Yeah, Savage Worlds doesn't have a whole complex. That being said, I do know people who say they take a lot longer to make characters because they hit a analysis paralysis because of how many options there are, how many edges and hindrances and stuff that there is. So, and then you have to figure out, okay, well, if I want this edge, I need to make sure I have scores in these things. So there is some stuff to go, but overall, yeah, it's pretty quick. Only time you see it really take longer is when you're trying to level up. If you're starting at season 1, I think we took 2 hours to do a session 0, where we were talking about character backgrounds, looking at character development, trying to figure all that out. So, but you could easily create a character not long at all. As he says here, he says the hindrances and edges especially help define how you might roleplay them, which I think I like that he's kind of leaning to that. It helps you roleplay, helps you actually it actually helps the ease of learning, because now you know exactly what your character is like, and you can just kind of roll with it. As he says, some are designed for combat, but many are designed for smaller circumstances, which still makes for good role-playing opportunities. Things like Jack of Trade, Anemic, etc. So a lot of really cool stuff. Like that, he likes that, so that's great. Presentation, he gives a 10 out of 10. Awesome. Yeah, Savage Worlds is a greatly presented book. It is small. It is. Also, I like the size of it. I think everything's really well sorted. I will say I'm a little bit surprised they gave it a 10 out of 10, because I feel like that presentation is something that people have complained about. I've seen complaints about how Savage Worlds is organized from other people online, but people online complain about everything, like me. But I personally think it's actually fairly well organized. People don't like it sometimes when the terms are mentioned before they're explained, and sometimes you just can't you can't avoid that. sometimes there's just like a circular motion with terms that you have to sometimes mention terms a few places earlier. So yeah, we'll talk about that. So that thing is great. Vagal says he doesn't like the cover for SWADE. Really? I think I like it. I think it's the best cover we've gotten in Savage Worlds products. Besides, in Savage Worlds core rulebooks. I like it. I will say maybe it doesn't jump off the shelf as much as it could. So I'll give you that. Maybe it doesn't jump off the shelf, but I like it. I think it looks nice. Okay, so that's presentation. Oh, sorry, presentation. Yeah, good layouts. Carl Kiesler does amazing layout stuff. He mentions here though, he says, "Oh, the PDF only has 163 pages." The PDF for this does not have 163 pages. It has more than that. It has closer to 200. I'm guessing he is looking at one of the players' books, not the core rulebook. So I'm hoping that's not what happened, but because I think people might get a little confused by like, oh, player's book versus like the core rulebook, and that they're essentially the same thing, except for the core rulebook has a little bit more. Just kind of like a heads up to him. Yeah. Hey, the book is not. It's not 500 pages like some games, like he says. Like he doesn't like the games that have like these huge, massive rule books. It is a small rule book, but it is bigger than 163 pages. All right, let's go down. Lore of the game. Okay. This is the score I got probably the most annoyed at. Because, yes, Savage Worlds is designed to be a settingless system. You can use it for whatever you want. There is no lore behind it. You can either bring in lore from another game, like Deadlands or whatever, or you can make it your own. Now, I would be okay with a 3 out of 10 because there isn't much lore, except Newman Cypher got a really good lore score, a 10, because of Numenera, even though the system itself is loreless, right? So a little bit annoyed about that. I think we could bump the numbers. I think, honestly, I think Savage Worlds deserves at least a 9. Like, if you combine Savage Worlds with Deadlands, which I think would be the appropriate thing to do, you gotta have at least a 9 there, if not 10. So I think we can give Savage Worlds a 6-point bump into lore. If we're going to allow that, or Cypher needs to come down on lore because Cypher doesn't have lore. Numenera has lore, but Numenera and Cypher, one's the system, one's the setting. So that's my little annoyance there. I think we can give Savage Worlds a big bump because you can go just get Deadlands and there you go. Combat in Savage Worlds. Okay, so this was a low one. I did take an issue with this one because for multiple things to what he said. So I'm just going to read out loud a little bit. There are tons of rules in Savage Worlds which outline each specific situation that could arise, which is hard since the game is cross genres. And to that point, I'm going to say that I think that Savage Worlds does a really good job of, while there is lots of rules, I think they're just guidelines. You don't have to use them. You can use your own rules. They're just things to help you figure something out. And they're usually written to be very broad. It's not, okay, here's what it is like to run horseback. It's here's what it's like to shoot from an unstable platform, whether that's horseback, whether that's from a jumping around vehicle, whether that's from a rickety bridge, whatever it is. Here's the unstable platform rules, right? So I think Savage Worlds does a really good job of making sure that the extra situational rules they have are still fairly broad and can be applied to multiple situations, which I think is really good. As I say here, many of these rules take appearance in the form of the various powers you select for your character. I don't understand that because I'm like, game mechanics and powers to me are not the same thing. So I feel like there's like a little crosstalk here, which feels a little odd to me. That being said, you can really only do what your edges, powers, and sometimes hindrances allow you to. I'm sorry, but I think that's just wrong. I think that's wrong. You can absolutely do a whole bunch of things that are not tied to your edges, hindrances, or powers. One, powers, obviously, obviously, if you guys play Savage Worlds, powers are only available to those who have arcane backgrounds or mystic powers, and there are games out there that don't use them. You don't have to have powers. But you can definitely do things that are outside your edges. In fact, most edges just let you do whatever it is you can do with your skill list, better. Give you like a bonus to a certain situation. It's like, you get a +2 to your persuasion roll when dealing with someone who finds you attractive. If you've got the attractive edge, or someone who knows you, if you're famous, you could take, there's just all the edges really just kind of say, hey, in certain situations, you're going to be better at this skill. I don't feel like you're limited by what your edges do or your hindrances do. Like, I think that's just wrong. You don't get many edges or powers in Savage rolls, even if you've played for a while. I disagree with that. I think you get quite a few. I mean, you get the legendary, like you advance more often in Savage rolls than you do in D&D, and I think you get quite a few edges. So, okay. All right, moving on. Combat is okay. I mostly enjoy it, but I won't say it's great. I wouldn't love playing a massive fight or a dungeon with many battles as a gaming session of Savage rolls, which is kind of a bummer since those are generally my favorite parts of tabletop RPGs. I will agree with this. I don't like, we've been playing Savage Pathfinder, and when we go into a dungeon, I do get kind of like, I don't really want to do this. And that is where you should be including some of those optional system rules, like quick encounters. Like, hey, you don't need to do every single one in a dungeon. But he's saying that he likes combat, and I think the combat in Savage Worlds is fun. Personally, I think it is a lot of fun. What I don't like about doing that much combat for Savage Worlds in like a dungeon setting, it's just it doesn't feel to me like the kind of game I want to be running with Savage Worlds. That's all. So okay, I can kind of agree with this one. I'm not a big fan of classless RPGs like Savage Worlds in general, because everyone ultimately ends up playing the same sort of character by the end of the game, when they can do everything. And for example, if there are powers of flight, invulnerability, and huge damage attacks, every player will eventually get those abilities. Since there's no class restrictions, there's nothing stopping everyone from becoming godlike in every aspect. No, just no. One, not everyone gets powers. And even then, I have heard this complaint before about Savage Worlds, is that like, oh, people all end up becoming kind of samey. I'm like, who are you playing with? Because that is not true at my table. My players are all very different. We're playing Vermilion right now, right? And we have a clockwork assassin. We've got a blighted Sasquatch, and we've got a halfling bounty hunter, and they've got very different abilities. They've got very different things they're doing, going for different edges. One's dual wielding pistols, one is like hiding weapons, one's got fungus powers, I guess. Like they're and again, the thing is that the thing that annoys me the most about this is that I heard this argument before, and I don't understand where it comes from. If someone can tell me in the chat, if you know where this happens, like why people say this, I would love to hear that, because I don't understand. I honestly don't understand where this belief that everyone becomes, one, godlike in everything. Like that's definitely not true. But two, like they all become same. Like that doesn't happen in my games. And yeah, I just don't get it. Also, I don't know of any invulnerability power, and I don't think any of my players have ever taken the flight power. And huge damage attacks. I'll say that, like, yes, I say most of my casters take bolt. I'll give you that. Almost everybody takes bolt because bolt's fun. But almost everybody flavors it differently, and it has, but whatever. It says here he also missed an I there, so much on there. Neat concept. I have still yet to see a great classless RPG in a tabletop format. This results in combat where each character, instead of having roles in the party from their class, basically does a little of everything. I don't hate that as a thing. That's the I actually I like that people are like, okay, I'm not like great at this, but I'm gonna have a little bit of all this stuff. I like having the option to make a character like that. If you go watch my character creation video, one of the comments I got on that video was like, oh man, I love how your character's actually like well-rounded. And you're not like min-maxing the character. Well, hey, when you don't min-max, you kind of tend to spread things out a little bit more and try to make sure that you have at least a little bit of everything going on. Yes, he has things that he's definitely better at. Like there's things that he's the best, like his best thing is something. but he's also got skills and other things. So yeah. And Curse Yig says here, I usually suggest my players don't steal each other's thunder when they level up, take different edges and such. Yeah. And I feel like most players understand that. They know like they have they're doing that's a bit different than what someone else is doing, and they naturally kind of do that, right? No, I will say that sometimes there are situations where players are trying like, oh, I feel like I'm useless because in combat because these two guys can do a lot of damage, and for some reason I can't figure out how to do damage in the way I'm doing it. And the thing is, though, is that in Savage Worlds, it's not all about damage output. You can have someone who's just a helper in the game, like who's someone who's helping out, or is someone who's just completely non-combat focused, but still be involved in combat, or have someone that's like doing a bunch of debuffs while everyone else is doing damage. There's a lot of like flexibility in the combat system to do these kind of things. So again, I disagree. Like I would be okay with the 5 out of 10 if you gave me good reasons. I just completely disagree with these reasons. Now, that being said, he believes this for a reason. So I'm curious to see like what was his experience and like to know like what happened to his game table when he did this that made him come to these conclusions, right? It's like, okay, what happened at your table? Like who ran it in a way that didn't seem fun? That he had one point that was good about the I wouldn't want to do a dungeon, but true, sure. Yeah, John Doom said like as written, Rise of the Rune Lords can be a bit of a slog for dungeon crawling. Yeah, it does get that sometimes. I'm actually kind of like wanting to skip the Rune Forge because I don't want to do it. I just want to get to the next part. I'll say I've had players who have had their characters killed off and remade the same character as one. I mean, I think I've seen that in D&D, right? People do that in D&D. So there's literally a whole entire skit I saw. Like the guy's like, I just have a stack of characters that's all the same characters, just a bunch of bards, and he just kept playing them over and over and over again until there's a stack of bards in the game. So who has better combat than Savage Worlds? I really like Savage Worlds combat. It's my favorite combat that's part of the reason why I play Savage Worlds. But you might be asking like who has better in this. We'll get to the list. Yeah, people who have better combat than Savage Worlds. Well, Savage Worlds only got a 5. So Shadowrun and Marvel Universe and Pathfinder and Numenera. Although Numenera only got like a 5.6 maybe it's a 6. Cypher, I should say. So combat is the one he is like the most strict about, right? So the highest there was an 8. And most everything else like 7.5 below. So I think we could like under his like very strict like I'd say we could I think we should give Savage Worlds that point. Game flow. Okay, so he separates game flow and combat, which I think is good, right? Combat and game flow and combat is separated, and I think that's good because combat and the way the game works outside combat, I think, is a lot different for most games, and it should be different. So I think this is good that he has this like separated out. He does say that it's really simple to start playing Savage Worlds. Resolution is simple, and skill checks in combat. He calls it rules light. I think someone says it's crunchy. Like no, he calls it rules light. I would say rules medium personally, but sure. Which certainly helps against flow. You don't need to reference a lot of things. The story moves along quickly. I agree. I like that. I just really start saying some things. I'm like, okay. That being said, the game almost feels like it doesn't provide enough to me. So without a skillful game master, as mentioned above, which I forget where you mentioned that. Game master. So, but yeah, he talks about game masters a decent amount. You're really about that sales. I didn't fully understand this. So he says if we have a great game master, Savage Worlds really does perform well. But the game itself really comes down to the skill enthusiasm of the game master running it. Is this not true for all tabletop role-playing games? Like, I'm not sure what he means by this. For that reason, it's not a game that anyone can pick up and easily and really get into the flow and enjoyment of the game. I've had really good experiences with great game masters. I've also had really bad Savage Worlds experiences with new and experienced and lackluster game masters. All in all, I tend to favor a game where new people can pick them up and play very easily. Though that's certainly something Savage Worlds provides to players. As players, it's not really something that provides game masters. Maybe I understand the general premise, but I don't think I agree with it entirely. I mean, it gives you a 6 out of 10, but like there are definitely games that are definitely a lot easier, I think, to like pick up and run. Shadow Dark, for example, not Shadowrun, Shadow Dark, I think is very simple to pick up and start running. But I don't know if it's just because there's a lot of rules to like a lot of situation rules, which again are guidelines. I feel like if Savage Worlds was to put in, I think Savage Worlds could put in a 1-page. Maybe someone should design this. A 1-page like simplest breakdown of the rules, not of each skill. Just like here's how you call for things. Here's how you roll the like a quick 1-page reference sheet for game masters to get them started. Like, hey, here's a quick lookup of the things you need to know. 4 is a resolution. 4 succeeds. 8 is a raise. That kind of thing. Otherwise, I think because if you just add that in, I think Savage Worlds does that. But I could be maybe this. It's something where I'd like to hear more about what his thoughts are, like why he's saying these things, and like what particular thing he's thinking about. When I'm on Discord with some other people at different Discords, not Savage Worlds Discords, I will talk to people about mechanics, and people will mention, like, I think someone mentioned meta currencies recently. And I asked him, hey, what do you think of Savage Worlds meta currencies? And he says, I like meta currencies. I'm glad they're there, but I don't necessarily agree with like XX reasons why they're there. I talked more about that. Okay, sure. I get that. Can you explain more about that? And what I found was that their game master was running Savage Worlds bennies differently. They're using the hard choices rule, which the player didn't like, which I can understand. It's not the default for sure. But he thought it was the default, which is, if you think it's the default, yeah, we can understand not liking Savage Worlds bennies if hard choices is the default. And there's something else as well. So yeah. But I like having these conversations with people to hear like why, not only what they think about a game, but why they think about a game and what their experience was. Because often what we find is that they didn't like the experience because they're running things differently than what most of the community actually runs things. So yeah. Artwork 10 out of 10. Great. Savage Worlds has a great artwork, and I can get 100% by that. I have the poster of this hanging up on my wall over in the other room. Although I realized I don't think that actually says Savage Worlds anywhere on the poster, so I think people just go, "Why do you have a cyberpunk girl on a bicycle?" I'm like, oh, that's Red. She's the mascot for Savage Worlds. That's our cyberpunk version. Let's see here. Yig says, I know all these games and they do not have better combat than Savage Worlds. I mean, I'm sure that's up to personal preference, but still. I just realized that this whole time I have not been sharing the right tab. Wish you guys would have told me. I was trying to. Savage Worlds artwork 10 out of 10, ease of purchase 9 out of 10. I'm actually surprised how good of a score he gave purchase. Because I've only seen Savage Worlds in a few game stores, definitely not most, but you can get it from the website. You can get it from Amazon. There's plenty of, as he says, there are many supplemental books which can make purchase a little disorienting at first, but it's quite easy to find what you need for the main game, and supplemental books for any genre which you might play. Good. I think that's good there. I like that Savage Worlds has continued to release supplemental books over time that cover each genre. So he knows that they exist for like lore reasons and stuff. So I'm curious like what the lore thing was about. If you want to circumvent some of the problems with the game that I mentioned above, difficulty establishing clear expectations for game sessions, do few rules, support the new game masters, purchase one of the Savage Worlds supplemental books that fits the genre that you want to play. I can get behind that. So yeah, I think this is good. Price and how many books you do need to play. 10 out of 10. You only need one. If you want to play Savage Worlds, you only need this. That's all the one that you need. Actually, one could argue that you only need this. Maybe not even that. So glad to see that. That's good. Fame and availability of supplemental material, 9 out of 10. That one was also surprising to me. So a lot of material available. It says that the main problem with the main game is that it's a little thin, small, since it covers every conceivable genre out there. Hits everything, but in a mediocre sort of way. In terms of of finding other people to game with. Many people play Savage Worlds and really enjoy the game, so you shouldn't have too much trouble. That's nice to hear, actually. I saw another post from someone else that was talking about. Let's see if I can find the. I hope I didn't close the image. There we go. Yeah, I'll share this image with everybody. Maybe. There we go. This is the amount of games being played at GaryCon. You see here we have, almost 500 games in D&D 5th edition. Sure, it makes sense. 138 of Shadowdark. Shadowdark has pushed in there. Call of Cthulhu, AD&D, Dungeon Crosslegs, etc. And Savage Worlds is here. We are on the list here at 34. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is 10th place as far as how many games are being played. The very small convention that I went to, besides myself running Savage Worlds, there was another game of Savage Worlds being run. So it's good to see that there is plenty of people, especially at conventions, that are playing Savage Worlds. So glad to see it. Yig, you said, seems like the RPG hobby has been leaning hard into the bare bones simple games lately, but I prefer play something that deep enough to sink my teeth into. That seems to be one of the things that people are trying to balance a lot. They want a game that is simple and rules light, but has a lot of tactical depth. Which seems counterintuitive. I think that some people feel like there's like, oh, you have to have lots of rules of tactical depth. And I disagree with that. I think Savage Worlds does do a good job balancing that, like having plenty of tactical depth without being like overly complicated as far as like the things you can do in combat. We don't have 5-foot steps. We don't have we have gang up on us. So yeah. So like, we have these like different small things that like go into it, but they're not overwhelming in my opinion. So yeah. Shadowrun, Speckle says Shadowrun, you have to know almost 3 different systems if you have all the archetypes. Yeah. Monkey says maybe one day they'll do a Savage Worlds beginners box. They have stated they announced at, I will say, Gen Con last year that they are going to be working on. They didn't put that in the 2026 announcement, so that makes me a little sad. But it's possible that the 2026. Oh, actually, know what? That new, well, no, it's still Tabletop role playing game, so never mind. But one of the products they might be releasing for Deadlands 30th anniversary is a box starter set of Deadlands, like the core. Like maybe my thought is like a trimmed down version of Deadlands, like a starter adventure combined with like the player's handbook in a box set for like a starter box. So they did say they're going to do one. I'm hoping it's for the 30th anniversary of Deadlands. They're going to do one for that. That would be really nice and that'd be really cool to see. So here's hoping that happens, and we'll see what happens if that happens. Now I did want to go back to the other list of games, just kind of give you a list of like kind of like, hey, where everything should fall. So Savage Worlds got 6th place. I think we could give it, personally, I think we can give it like 7 more points. But that only pushes it into above Shadowrun, which we did place higher than Warhammer. And we placed higher than Star Wars. Call of Cthulhu came in 9th. He didn't like the combat of Call of Cthulhu. Like we got 5 here. Game flow, which to be fair, Call of Cthulhu really isn't about combat. You don't really want to be doing too much combat in Call of Cthulhu. I don't recognize this game. Is Zweihander? I don't know anything about that. Vampire the Masquerade is definitely he put a very low game fame for this one. I feel like it's one of the most well-known games. What Star Wars system? That's a good question. I can't know if it's a Fantasy Flight version or West End Games version. Is that the old one? Yeah, that's the old Savage Worlds or old Star Wars one. So that's an old one. So it is the best of all time. So keep that in mind. D6, yeah, sure. But it's the goodest one. I heard really good things about the Fantasy Flight one, but I didn't like that it was a custom dice set for that. What else? We got Star Wars, Call of Cthulhu, Zweihander, Legends of 5 Rings. Again, which version, right? Because I played Legends of 5 Rings, but I played it under Aegis. This is the Fantasy Flight version, so this is not the version I played. Dungeon World, and then Ars Magica. I feel like what I've heard about Ars Magica is that it was like a cool idea and concept, but didn't actually like pull it off. So that's unfortunate. Yeah, so that gives you an idea of like where Savage Worlds is placed. It was kind of encouraging to me to actually see like Savage Worlds above in an article like this and being placed above other like really well-known games and like alongside, Shadowrun, like in that close proximity. My concern is honestly around combat and game flow. I don't really care about what you said about game lore because like, yeah, it's the lore is not really what's supposed to get you to get the core rulebook. My only concern is that I was like, okay, well, if you're going to give us a low score for game lore, Savage low score for game lore, then give Cypher a low one too. Be consistent. But I did think it was fun to read through his comments and thoughts and see what people think about Savage Worlds. If you are someone who has played Savage Worlds but you don't care for it, I want to hear why. Why do you not like it? Because I think that helps us inform us like how we need to change how we play the game, how we as GMs run the game, and to make sure that we're doing something that not necessarily going away from the game itself, but it could be that the game isn't actually the problem. It could be like your game master's the problem, or certain rules were the problem, or your misunderstanding of the rules could have been a problem. So yeah, so it definitely helps. I have a friend, a player who I ran a game for, and he doesn't care for Savage Worlds. And I was the GM for it. And really what I learned for that was, one, I wasn't familiar enough with the system quite yet. But also he just didn't care for the swinginess. He didn't like that one of the bad guys was taken out by a single shot by one of the other players. And I could have done things a little bit differently and everything, but I thought that was a fun way to go out. And I thought it was fun. So it is what it is. Yeah, so if you have any thoughts about why you don't like Savage Worlds, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear about it. I'll try not to fight you on it and more just be open and listen to what you have to say. For the rest of you, I hoped I don't know what we're gonna do the next few weeks. I have a few video ideas. I'm gonna try be getting them back on like making content and stuff. I've been doing a very good job about it recently with the holidays and such, and just like some family stuff going on. So we will hopefully see more of me making content soon. And I really appreciate everyone that came out. Yeah, there's a lot of people on today, so thank you all for hanging out and talking about Savage Worlds and rankings and stuff. And if you have video ideas as well, please leave them a comment down below. And look forward to hearing from Doghouse Rules about Occult City. And until next week, stay savage, everybody.